The Dog Who Walked with Zombies by Jennifer Lee Rossman. The landscape was awash in death, a gray and dreary scene that bordered on macabre at times and other times serene. The life had gone from earth and left its desiccated husk to roam in perpetuity amid eternal dusk. Humanity had crumbled as the dead began to rise. Survivors only ventured from their bunkers for supplies. The hollow shells of people past with lifeless eyes of black now wandered through the woods and towns just waiting to attack. They moaned and groaned and swayed their arms in listless, tired ways. The hordes could stretch for miles and they walked for countless days. Some smaller groups existed, made of half a dozen ghouls, who likely once were families, but now were vacant pools. Where once had been a consciousness, where once existed dreams, their bodies were contorted into silent, endless screams. They didn't know their families and loved each other not. They'd leave behind a fallen friend to decompose and rot. Vicinity their only bond, and food their only urge, they wandered day and night to an imaginary dirge. The dog who walked with such a group had loved her master so, and by his side she faithfully had watched his spirit go. And when he rose and walked again, she followed at his heel and stayed with him as he went through his living-dead ordeal. He didn't smell the same, of course, and never scratched her head, the way he used to do each night before they went to bed. He hadn't talked to her in months, emotions weren't shown, and though the woods were full of sticks, they languished there, unthrown. The loyalty she felt for him was not the least deterred, and joyfully she trotted with her little zombie herd. She left them periodically to go in search of food, and here and there she caught some naps, but never lost her brood. Her very soul existed for her master, live or dead, and moments when his hand would dangle low and touch her head. For months, or maybe years, they walked, the zombies and the dog. Around them swirled a smoky mist, an eerie, chilly fog. They hadn't fed in quite some time. The dog was growing weak. But now her nose detected it. The scent was quite unique. She bounded forward recklessly, the zombies close behind. To her, the smell was ecstasy, a scent that did remind of barbecues on summer days and sneaking table scraps, and life before society had undergone collapse. Her master had no memories, but he and all the rest were guided by an instinct that could never be repressed. They came upon a little house. The door was boarded shut, and luscious smells of roasting beef came wafting from the hut. A fence around the property prevented their advance, and soon enough the zombies would recover from their trance and shuffle off in search of something easier to eat. The dog began to whine and bark, just longing for a treat. The dog awaited eagerly. Her tail began to thrash from side to side, and to the ground her drool began to splash. The zombies that surrounded her were equally enthused, and from their mouths and open wounds excitement slowly oozed. A shot rang out. Her master groaned and crumpled to the ground. Another awful round of shots. Her zombies all around were lifeless heaps of skin and bones. Her master wouldn't rise. She licked his face and pawed his arm as sorrow filled her eyes. Her mournful howls filled day and night. She wouldn't leave his side and slept beside the rotting flesh of people who had died. The person with the beef and gun attempted to persuade the dog to come inside the hut, but stubbornly she stayed. Her body slowly withered, and her ribs did now protrude. The life had left her soulless eyes. Her growl was low and crude. When she had nearly given up, her heart began to slow. A light appeared before her eyes. Her master had to know that she had been a faithful dog until the very end, through life and death and life again, a zombie's faithful friend. She closed her eyes and settled in, but then she heard a sound. A little group of living dead was walking past the hound. With nothing else to do but die, she found the will to stand and walked as one with all the dead that roamed across the land.